Hi, welcome to A Moment with the Author. My name is Ray, and today I'm joined by Mary Netreba, who's a local author and has written a book entitled Rosemary For Remembrance, which is a fiction title. Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got into writing, what the process behind this book was. Just share a little bit of your story with us.
Well, my background had absolutely nothing to do with writing whatsoever. So the first thing I should tell you.
That tends to be a pretty common theme around here.
Yes, my background actually was in dance, and I had danced and then also had owned a dance studio. But there was always something in my heart that told me that I needed to write. And when I first decided to start writing a book, which was actually over 10 years ago, I knew I wanted to do it, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to write about. And then I thought, oh, I know exactly who to write about. The story is based on one particular actual event for a little girl in the story. It's an 8-year-old girl by the name of Rachel. And Rachel was my grandmother. And this lady really lived out her faith. So I wanted to do a story wrapped around some of those circumstances and show people that there's always hope no matter what. And she was someone who, just the whole way through her entire life, she kept her faith.
That's really awesome. True stories have a way of really resonating with us, you know, and let us know, because when you can see some of those things worked out in someone's real life, it lets you know, hey, I can do this too. So that's really a neat connection. How did you decide on the title for the book? That's just such an unusual title, Rosemary For Remembrance. How did you decide on that?
Well, actually the title of the book was Rachel, which was my grandmother.
Huh.
But my marketing representative and my publisher at Tate they had gotten together, and they had felt that Rachel was more of a common title and they wanted something to stand out. The book itself has a huge herb theme through it, where this part where Rachel, she actually has an herb farm in the early 1900s, and they thought, well, maybe it'd be a good idea to name the book after something that had to do with the herb theme, which is how we came up with Rosemary For Remembrance.
I really like that. It's an unusual title. It really catches your attention. Well, was there a specific event in your life that made you want to learn more about your grandmother, that kind of, how did you find out about her story? Was this something that was shared throughout the generations, or how did you come to want to write about her?
I think she was a storyteller. All the time that we were growing up, and she'd come over for dinner at the house and everything, we had five brothers and sisters, and we would sit down and she would tell us stories upon stories. So I always felt inspired over how she was able to do that. In her life, there were so many circumstances in her life that were so challenging, and I just felt that to put this kind of a book out there that shows a work of faith, that shows a work of hope, was probably something that a lot of people could read and would hopefully be inspired from, and I would hope that they would walk away with it knowing that there's no circumstance that is ever so terrible that they can't get through it with Christ.
Wow, that's a great lesson. That's a really great lesson. This book has a lot to do with a theme wrapped around World War I.
Yes.
How did World War I work? That's a hard thing to say, World War I. How did that work into the plot for you?
Well, it's kind of funny, when you're writing a book, you don't really know sometimes where it's going to end, or you might have an idea where it's going to end, or maybe something drastically changes. What I ended up doing, my grandmother was actually born in 1892. I actually moved her birth date up to 1900 and took it from there, and that brought her into the time frame of World War I and being in a romantic relationship with someone, and then going through World War I and being married to this person, and of course, that's what part of the story is about. Does her husband come home, and so on and so forth.
Very neat. People, you know, that's so neat, because we're so used to hearing of World War II that it's really neat to have a book that connects you to that history during World War I. So I think people will really find that intriguing. How did faith play an active part in your storyline? How did you weave that in the storyline of this book?
It seems that Rachel always knew that God had a good plan for her life. She seemed to know it. No one really told her that, but she was just aware that there was something or someone telling her early in life that her life was meant for something. And that's what always kept her going, because she knew no matter how bad things got, there was always going to be another day, better day ahead. And this is how she lived her life. And as time went on, obviously, In the story, it goes into when she meets this young man, and the parents are Christians, and she becomes more aware of prayer and God and Christ and the relationship of Christ and faith, and that's what brought her through the whole way.
Wow, wow. With a book like this that is written, I guess over 100 years ago now is the time frame it's set in.
Yes.
How will the modern reader connect to this? How will someone that's living in 2011, what are some common themes that you feel like they're going to relate to?
I think probably everything except for the actual time frame, because the same things that happened back then are still happening now. It hasn't really changed. If we go to the Bible and we look in the Bible at all the different circumstances that happened, especially if you look in Psalms, how David was persecuted over and over again, and different people in the Bible that were persecuted, but in the end, it always turned out. It always turns out. So I'm hoping they're going to be inspired by the book in their own lives in the modern day version.
Draw an application from
Yes.
for today.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
You know?
There's nothing new under the sun.
That's really true. Well, Mary, thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to people being able to pick up your book at the Cornerstone. You can visit us online at cornerstoneboone.com, or stop in the store and say hello, and we'll be glad to show you Rosemary for Remembrance. Thanks.